Welcome. Oops, sorry. That was early. I am Dan. Welcome. This is Our Android Week with Alan Furstenberg in New York, Bruce Turner in Lynchburg, Virginia, Duke Carrico in Kingsport, Tennessee, with two N's, Kadesh Kalut in Newport Beach, California, and in Menifee, California, Pam Adger. This is Our Android Week. I'm literally getting dressed. So, okay, welcome. We don't have a whole lot of topics tonight because there's no news. And
Well, let's discuss why there's no news first.
well, it's Columbus Day when we celebrate the Italian guy who came and killed the natives and enslaved a few and put the rest in concentration camps. And we get a day off work. Every story has a happy ending. Okay, so that didn't go over well. Why is there no news, Alan?
Because everybody's reporting on rumors about what's supposed to happen this week or next week with Android, Android L, and smartphone releases.
And the Apple thing's coming up soon, isn't it?
Who's Apple?
That's Thursday. But Alan doesn't know who Apple is.
We're phoning it in, literally, tonight.
Oh, those guys who make the awesome laptops, right?
They make iPods. Haven't you heard of an iPod? It's the 20th anniversary of the Netscape Navigator web browser. The whole commercial web started 20 years ago today. That's pretty badass, and it makes me feel old. And as Jeff Jarvis pointed out, he was talking, it was like, the question was, instead of Apple versus Microsoft or Android versus iOS, it was, are you Prodigy or AOL, Alan? Or CompuServe, right? Back in the
I
olden
was
days.
the internet. See, I use the real stuff.
You were
I
like
never
with
got on
Hopper
those
and those
lame
people?
dial-in systems. I was on the internet. I was on the internet before this web thing came along.
This web thing?
This newfangled web thing. It's just a passing phase.
I swear to God, I was the director of communications at RMA, Randolph-Macon Academy, and this teacher said he was pissed off because we didn't do. We're good friends now, but he was pissed off because they didn't buy the French lab, which was a book formatted thing that he wanted, and instead they bought computers or something. And he said this internet thing is a passing fad. It turns out
We'll be discussing all of this
Yeah.
on Friday on Google Plus Week.
not really. All right, so there's a little Oracle issue going on that we teased on Friday. And what's the status of that, Dr. Furstenberg?
Well, Supreme Court opened sessions. Its session last week, and one of the things in the process is that Google filed a petition with the Supreme Court to requesting that they be allowed to appeal the Oracle v. Google case. What we might remember is that a couple of years ago, Oracle, actually it might have been Sun then, sued Google because Google was using the Java programming language as part of Android, but they were not using Sun/Oracle's version of the Java programming language. So they were saying that Google violated its patents and violated its copyrights. And Oracle lost that original case. Oracle appealed, and in the appeal, Oracle won on the grounds that the APIs for Java, the way that Java programs communicate with core Java libraries and other parts of the Java system, that those APIs were copyrightable and that Google violated that copyright. Google is now requesting the Supreme Court to hear the appeal of that case. And they're appealing it on a number of grounds, including that several district courts have ruled in conflicting ways regarding whether APIs can be copyrighted or patented, And since there is now a disagreement among district courts, this is an appropriate thing for the Supreme Court to hear. And that is one of the usual things the Supreme Court looks for when it decides whether it's going to take a case on appeal, is if there are multiple rulings in lower courts which need resolving. In addition, Google has indicated that the results of the case violate the Supreme Court's previous rulings, namely in the Lotus v. Borland case, where the Supreme Court tried to establish what was patentable versus what was copyrightable. So hopefully, Google will get its motion granted, and we will actually get to hear Oracle try to explain why they're not a pack of flaming idiots.
Okay, question. Trying to get context here. We recently have discussed the patents being thrown out and the court saying you can't patent something just because it's the way it's always been done, but now it's done on a computer.
Correct.
What is the argument here that says if Alan Furstenberg and Thaddeus Kalut spend 12 years and $12 billion developing their specific gateway, how come, what's the argument in Google's behalf that someone else can't wholesale copy that verbatim and use it in something else? The argument for it is that everyone's been trained on these words. It's almost like the first computer language. And so you can't, put versus right versus whatever. But what's the argument in Google's favor, the argument against letting this be copyrighted?
First of all, let's get one thing clear. We are not talking about patents. Patents are off the table here. Second is that one of the things that we're not talking about is the wholesale copying of something. So, for example, an API might define the way that you have the compiler, the runtime system, add two numbers. And that might be that you call the add function and pass in two integers and you get an integer out. That's an API. That is establishing how you ask the computer to do something. But it does not establish how the computer does it. That, the court has ruled previously, is subject to copyright. So the actual code that implements something is copyrightable. Google's argument is that the code that tells you how to ask for something to be done is not copyrightable.
It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Al, I'm trying to understand this from, I'm representing the layman here, I'm Big Bird of the program, if you will. The issue is that was a primary API in use at the time, that programmers of all stripes knew how to use that, and that by using the same terms that they wouldn't have to retrain people in literally a different language.
That's correct.
But it seems like, does Oracle have a beef here? It's almost like Harry Potter got so popular, and so other people want to write books and use terms like Quidditch because the kids get that. Is that a fair analogy?
Not really. I mean, I see where you're going with that one. That's not. It's more like that kids want to then use the term wizard. Wizard is a common enough term.
But wizard existed prior
Exactly.
to Janet Rowling, or J.K. Rowling. I'm not even sure if her first name's Janet, but weren't these like specific things that they created at Oracle or Sun Microsystems, as you point out, the initiator?
It's more, well, yes and no. You also then have to say, okay, if you're going to go that route, you then have to start asking, okay, where did Sun come up with them? So if Sun came up with a class called integer, did they invent that? No, they didn't. Did they come up with a class named object? No, they didn't. These are terms and concepts borrowed from somewhere else.
So they're not the originators. It's like when BASIC, I think BASIC, the term to display text on the screen or wherever you're directing it, was right. I think with C, it's output and with Pascal, I forget.
Let's not try to get
But
you.
is
to
it
do
kind of
perfect-
like if they went
Wow.
to Turbo Pascal and copied this all the names that they used for, as verbs, if you will, to do things en masse because it was easier than having to retrain people in a new dialect?
That's part of it, but also in some cases, some of these are just common terms. Integer is a common term in computer science. Are there, thread is a common term in computer science. Can you argue that the fact that you are naming it java.util.hash or .map moves it from a generic term to a specific term? You might be able to argue that, but I think it's a weak argument. And certainly it starts running you into all sorts of other problems.
The Supreme Court's held, I think the Supreme Court, they've held that I can freely share a recipe. Julia Child, this is her chicken recipe, and maybe this is my version of it. Here are the ingredients in this order. I'm fine. I cannot reproduce an entire collection of recipes from Julia Child that's copyrighted and sold by her company, right? The late Julia Child. Is this analogous to that, where can a case be made by Oracle that they are copying en masse stuff that I get your argument on integer, etc., but by copying wholesale lots of terms, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't understand this on the level that you do, but and I'm just trying to be fair
Yeah, no,
on
I
the
understand.
argument side. Go ahead.
If you're going to go with the recipe analogy, the best analogy there would be that I have taken your recipe book, or I have had somebody take your recipe book, copy all of the titles of each recipe, and then come up with my own recipes for all of those things.
So you had a completely different version of pan roasted chicken, but it was still titled, it was the second recipe in the book,
And it was titled Pan Roasted Chicken, correct.
but you used cast iron and I used a barbecue grill and
Correct.
yeah.
My implementation is my own, but the result is the same thing.
But is there any merit in their argument? Because I mean, I have a propensity to side with Google, the do no evil company, in theory. But if I had spent money training 70,000 Cadeas guys and spent billions doing it to create a whole dialect or terms or whatever, or to even use existing terms but put them in our own structure and our own formatting, and then it became the thing that everyone looked at, and then all of a sudden my Kleenex is taken by Puffs and they're using Kleenex in the generic term or whatever, and
No,
like,
that
wait a minute,
analogy
I want my
doesn't
money
hold.
back.
You're now talking. You've just wandered into trademark territory. So let's not confuse things even
I
further.
think
here.
I've explored every possible angle on this, all of them inaccurately.
The
What do
simple
you
way
think,
to
Cadeas? Does Oracle have a legitimate beef here or not? Cadeas,
I
what do
don't
you think?
so. I think Oracle is driving at straws. Is what I think they're doing. So, I don't see how. Well, let's use the recipe analogy. That's the most easiest one to use. I don't see how if I take something, make it my own, but because I use the same title. I mean, you can't even sue for something like that in music because we have songs that are named with the same title but totally different songs.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to sit and say, "Oh, you're using our stuff because you used our name," I think that's useless, and I don't know why that was even ruled against Google in the first place. So I'm glad that they're revisiting that. Why are you about to laugh? What's funny?
Me or Alan?
You.
Oh, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just trying to stretch our one topic. We have one topic. Oh my God, we were like we spent more time before the show than the show will be. I said we have there's no news. I think Elgin, our beloved friend, he did a 15-minute show today, and they were talking about the NFL headphone thing. So anyway, all right. So you guys, now we've seen with the area ruling, I think the Supreme Court got it wrong. So this is risky behavior,
Well,
or risky
no,
strategy,
that's the-
right?
I mean, it's only risky in the sense that right now, Google lost. So there's no risk to them to appeal.
Right.
They're not even appealing yet. They're requesting an appeal.
But since it's a slow news week, they're all but in front of the court as we speak. So yeah, it could happen or it could not happen. I don't know. So yeah, I guess they got nothing to lose. If you lose and you appeal, your only option is to be better off or be where you were, minus a few legal fees. So okay, so that we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. But the Supreme Court being right doesn't mean you'll win. I think Aereo should have gone the other way, and the Supreme Court, I think, didn't really understand it. I think that they specifically crafted something to be legal, and then the court said because you specifically crafted something to be legal, it's illegal. Because you had nefarious goals or whatever. But anything else on this Oracle thing? Okay. All right, so that we hope you enjoyed it. Is there anything else going on? You want to talk about the stupid headphone thing? What was the other thing you were talking about? Where they had the iPad thing. You said you just saw on The Verge, but Alan heard about this a month ago.
No, we won't talk about that. But there is something that we kind of missed, Alan. You do know that Chromecast, the app came out that allows you to use your photos, your personal and Google Plus photos on Chromecast now as the backgrounds.
Oh yeah, I tried it. It picked up the wrong account and then promptly crashed.
What? I didn't have that problem, but I don't think I played with it that long. So.
It also, annoyingly enough, it only works on the Chromecast. It doesn't work on Android TV.
Speaking of that, maybe we do need to talk a little bit about that. Why in the world is Google Cast different from Chromecast? Why is it that I can't use Hulu Plus on Android TV? I have to use Chromecast to throw up Hulu Plus or HBO Go or any of those other apps? Because,
and my understanding is that it isn't so much that they're different, because they are the same, but it's that they haven't approved those other apps for the Android TV device.
Okay, that's ridiculous.
Approved on a device-by-device basis.
That's ridiculous. Okay.
Right now. And Android TV is just a test system.
Okay. So I had to pull out the Chromecast and plug it back in. It's because of that. So
if you need another one to test to see if it's just your particular Chromecast, Craig has one. If you need, if he can find it, I loaned mine to my housekeeper. So it's a nice device. It's cute, it's small. Okay. Anything else going on?
Oh.
Cadeas, you good? Okay, well, this is actually in keeping with our original plan, which was a 30-minute show, and we've exceeded those expectations. Thank you all so much for watching and for all your wonderful comments. All four of you watching live on Columbus Day when we celebrate the rich historic legacy of Christopher Columbus, who may or may not have discovered the New World. And when he left, he didn't know where he was going. When he got here, he didn't know where he was. When he came back, he didn't know where he had been. And he did it all on borrowed money. So he gets a federal holiday. Thank you all very much. I'm Dan McDermott. Our show is every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Our other program, which is epic, awesome, and usually slightly longer than this one, although we're working on that, is Google Plus Week. That is every Friday at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, Friday night on Google Plus Week and YouTube Live. So thank you all very much. We enjoyed your comments. Have a wonderful Android week. We'll see you next week. Thanks.